A very good morning to you all. Welcome to our first dialogue this morning. We're really excited that you're able to join us. We expect our dialogue today to last for about 2 hours. So we begin now at 9, and we believe by 11 we should be done. We are so excited that we have started with the dialogue around prospects of the mining sector. And then on the 15th, we will be looking at the SDGs. And then on the 31st, we will be focusing on youth employment. As I said at the beginning, welcome. And I encourage you all to register through the chat so that we provide ample time for others who will be presenting. And of course, when we speak about prospects, for instance, myself, I'm really happy to see Mheshimiwa Peter Afumu here with us and a lot of others in the group. So we really appreciate that you have allocated time to attend. When we speak about mining, two things often come to mind. First of all, is the revenue, but then importantly, it's the employment that is generated. And we're really excited. We have a great program today. We will hear from Abel Kinyondo, who will give us a keynote address, telling us what are the prospects. But before even we go to the keynote address, we also have a great panel later on that will be speaking to us. And I am really excited, and I hope you all are, because you've joined us this morning. So without any further ado, kindly do allow me to welcome Dr. Elise Peron, who is the project lead from TAPRI. She will be taking two hats this morning. So I'm going to ask her to speak on behalf of the EU delegation, who are the ones who are the supporters of this project, but also she can tell us a little bit more about the dialogue itself. Elise, over to you.
Yes, so thank you and good morning, everyone. I am very pleased to see so many people attending the session this morning. So as Blandina just said, I am going to introduce you the project in the frame of which this dialogue is organized. This project is called Pilot for Research and Dialogue. And on behalf of the project team, I wish you all a very interesting panel, and I welcome you to this consultation. So I just want to say a few words. I won't take much of your time to present the project itself. The Pilot for Research and Dialogue project. So this is a project whose main objectives is to promote dialogue on economic resources, political and fiscal governance in Tanzania. And it also aims at creating a platform for sustainable dialogue, including public and private stakeholders in different regions of Tanzania. I would say that the dialogue that we will be having today serves to kind of launch this dialogue. More precisely, the project has different sub-objectives, if you want. The first one is to produce and to promote and disseminate high quality and evidence-based research on policies, resources, economic and fiscal governance. And this discussion that we're having today is held within the frame of a study which deals with the implementation of the 5-year development plan, its successes and good practices. Another objective is to nurture the debate among the stakeholders from the public, private and civil society sectors on these economic and fiscal governance issues, and especially with government stakeholders. And finally, the objective is to increase research capacity and extend the links, networks and connections among economic and governance research institutions in Tanzania. So the partners of the Pilot for Research and Dialogue project we are 4 partners. So there is, first of all, my university, Tampere University, which is located in Finland, in Northern Europe. Then there is Pilot for Dev, which is located in Brussels, in Belgium. Then there is the Institute of Management and Entrepreneurship Development in Dar es Salaam. I'm sure you're familiar with them. The last partner is COWI, located in Denmark. And as you can see, the project is co-funded by the European Union. So this dialogue that we're having today is the first of a series of events that we're going to organize, well, first this month, but also later this year on various issues. So as Blandina said, we are starting with the mining sector, but next week it's going to be on the Sustainable Development Goals, and at the end of the month on youth in national development. So we're hoping to launch dialogue and exchanges on these issues throughout the year and until the end of the year at least. So on behalf of the project, a very warm welcome, and I really look forward to our discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elise, for that great introduction. And of course, as you rightly point out, we all like dialogue, and I think a meaningful and fruitful dialogue is always one of the best ways we can always move forward. At the introduction, I said I'm really looking forward to the panel, but also really we have Abel Kinyondo, who will be giving us a keynote address. And with that, then I'm going to welcome him, and I'm going to try and see if I can allow him to now project his presentation. Otherwise, I can also just share my screen. And I think perhaps that will be easier. Abel, I'm going to share your presentation from my screen, and then I let you speak now. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
You can. Okay, so we're good to go. Karibu, Abel.
Thank you, Blandina. Thank you, organizers. I'm really excited to be part of this dialogue. I'm looking forward to learning from everyone. I'm still learning. I want today, and we can move forward, Blandina. I want today to just start the talk. And what I'll be doing is just telling everybody, reminding everybody where we are coming from, where we are at, so that we can set, a platform for everyone to start talking and giving some of ideas. We can move, Blandina. Just by starting, Blandina, we can move to the first slide. What is happening now around the world, especially in the developing world, is that majority of the countries have now enacted resource nationalistic laws. And what I'm trying to start as a talk today is to look at how these resource nationalistic laws affect large-scale mining in Tanzania, and how the same affect artisanal and small-scale mining. So this is basically what we'll be looking at, and then I believe that will allow us to start talking, and the learning will continue. Just to remind everyone here, resource nationalistic policies entail a situation where countries want to get a bigger share in their natural resources. One way to do that is to increase state participation in natural resources. In Tanzania, we have got STAMICO. So this will mean STAMICO playing a bigger role in mining. A different way to do that is to increase royalties and taxes so that we get more incomes. And of course, the last and quite common way is to build local content policies, which basically means increasing participations of locals, it be through jobs that are directly available in the mining sector, or through local suppliers who will be supplying goods and services in the sector. Now, I want to show you that the resource nationalistic policies started from time immemorial in Tanzania. Mwalimu Nyerere's view at the beginning, and I will skip the pre-colonial, we started mining long time ago with Chinese and Arabs in 17th, 16th, 18th centuries, but I will start in the post-independent Tanzania. Mwalimu Nyerere's idea was that let's wait. We need to have capacity before we can start mining. Right now, if we do mining, we don't have any capacity. Investors will come in and rip us off. But then that continued up to 1967. We know that we had Arusha Declaration, which very much allowed the country to nationalize all the means of production in the country. And STAMICO was given a sole role of mining in the country. So it was only STAMICO at that particular time. Even artisanal and small scale miners were not legal. So they were doing it illegally, but only STAMICO was supposed to be doing it. But then in 1970s, a lot of gemstones were discovered. And as we are going to see later on, gemstones are mainly mined by ASM, and therefore they started mining illegally. At that particular time, as I've said before, STAMICO was the only allowed institution to do the mining. Now, in 1979, the government passed the Mining Act. Again, STAMICO, the main player, but then few things happens. One, ASM, artisanal and small scale miners, were allowed now to come in, particularly small scale miners. Now, STAMICO was allowed to work with foreign investors. So foreign investors for the first time were allowed to come in, but they could only work through joint ventures with STAMICO. In 1980s, like in many other countries in the world, with problems that were happening across the developing world, the World Bank and IMF had to chip in to help the situation. World Bank's structural adjustment programs demanded several things. One of them is privatization. And therefore, what was there during the Mining Act of 1979 was very much now outdated, because now the policies wanted less of the public intervention and more of the private sector. That culminated into late 1990s when the World Bank pretty much supervised the promulgation of 1997 Mineral Policy and 1998 Mining Act, which together pretty much were pro-foreign mining investment in Tanzania. And as we're going to see later, Blandina, we can move on. The policy act and regulation were very much pre-foreign investors. They had exclusive access to prospecting and mining licenses. Locals were all over the sudden put aside. I should have said before that the 1979 Mining Act had some elements of local content, but now the 1998 removed that bit. So it was do whatever you want to do as long as you have foreign investment. This very act provided enormous powers to the minister responsible for minerals. He could give tax exemptions, he could negotiate any deal on behalf of the government and locals, and that paved the way for corruption as it became a norm, and everyone started feeling a little bit bad about mining in Tanzania. We know that in the early 2000s, the likes of Tundu Lissu and others came up with a lot of allegations like death happening alongside mining areas. There was so much that was happening. That led into several commissions of inquiry that were commissioned then from Kipokola, and then we had the likes of Marsha, which later on culminated, Blandina, we can move on, later on culminated into another change, which led into first mining policy of 2009 and Mining Act of 2010. These ones were a result of a lot of complaints that happened, that the World Bank sponsored 1998 acts and policies and the regulation that follows were not very friendly to locals. So the 2010 Act was supposed to come and take that one out and try to balance the scale, if you want to put it that way. Now, small-scale miners were recognized at that time, and things started moving. But when the current government came in, allegations started floating again. And the president, as we all remember, instituted 2 committees. Both of them claimed that there was systemic fraud and we are being ripped off. We know the story. As a result, the president instituted that we need to have legislation that will really arrest the situation so that the government, the people of Tanzania may start reaping benefits, unlike in the past. So in July 2017, amendments were done to Mining Act of 2010, and 3 pieces of legislation were passed. And these 3 pieces of legislation are Permanent Sovereignty Act of 2017, Revenue and Renegotiation of Unconscionable Terms Act of 2017, and the miscellaneous amendments of the same year. Now, these pieces of legislation had several important things. The first one was the government will have 16% carried interest. It also restricted the exportation of raw resources, implying that beneficiation should happen locally. It also gave powers to Parliament to review contracts and reject some of the contracts that were deemed unconscionable. It also demanded that whatever dispute should be settled locally using local courts and tribunal. We continue, Blandina. It also, I talked about the rejection of any terms that are deemed unconscionable by the Parliament. It also brought in local content elements in that, one, suppliers should mostly be locals, suppliers of goods and services, and also training and employment should look at locals. Now, 3 things were of much contention. The first one was the free carried interest. I should have said before that the issue of free carried interest did not start in 2017. It was there prior to 2010 Mining Act, but then at that time it was very difficult to implement it. Why? Because it required that the government inject a bit of capital for it to have the FCI. That didn't happen, so the implementation didn't go well. In 2010 Mining Act, the act added a negotiation clause. That is, well, we'll negotiate on the amount. If we are not going to inject any capital, then let's talk. We don't inject any capital, but natural resources are ours. What are you going to give us? Again, it left room for a lot of problems, as implementation became a bit of a problem. Now in 2017 Act, what the Act did was to say, you know what, this is not negotiable. We need to have 16%. Because as I've shown you the Acts, we have sovereign ownership of natural resources, and that ownership gives us automatically the 16% carried interest. So this 16% now is undiluted. Now, recent studies have shown that right now, implementation is a bit difficult. Only 1% of implementation is effective. Now, this brings a little bit of lack of clarity, because not all mining companies right now are adhering to 16% carried interest clause. Only 1%, as I've told you. But then the murmuring there is, if you're not adhering now, will the government come in 5 years to come and say, this is our tax invoice, you have to pay us the 16%? Or is it that the government has decided that this is unimplementable and therefore we should keep quiet on that? Now, when you have such kind of ambiguity, it becomes a problem. And the government needs to really work on this, and so that everyone is at peace with that. The second issue of contention was on the dispute resolution. As I've told you, the Act wanted that every dispute should be addressed locally. That was, of course, a bit of a problem. Luckily, in 2010, the government passed the Arbitration Act, which now changed it a little bit. And now it says Tanzania is just a venue. Arbitration can now be carried out by foreign bodies, quote unquote. Tanzania is just a venue. So right now this is sorted out and things seems to be moving well. Now the third point of contention, Blandina will move on. The third one is having to do with local content requirement. Now, these requirements are supposed to be implemented within 3 first months. Now, that's a big one. You need everything implemented in the first 3 months. It's not as easy as it sounds. The bigger thing, however, within those clauses is that there is equity participation of at least 20% should be accorded to a Tanzanian company as a condition for special mining license to be given. Now, you have to know that at the moment, Tanzania doesn't manufacture the majority of goods that are supposed to be supplied to mines. Even those suppliers that were doing so, that were not necessarily Tanzanians, were not incorporated. So it brought all the misunderstanding. How do you do that? Indigenous companies didn't have requisite capital for them to really be able to supply these goods and services. So how do you implement this local content requirements within a 3-month window? Now, what is happening at the moment is that the Mining Commission is closing its eyes. It's not implementing the clauses to the letter, which sounds good because things are moving on and mining companies can buy goods and services and all that. But again, it brings uncertainty in that if the law is there, we keep on moving, we are not adhering to that law. Are we breaching the law? Are we going to be sanctioned? Now, when you put such kind of uncertainty, production becomes a problem. Now, I told you before that we have resource nationalistic policies, which I've showed you, parts of resource nationalistic policies is having locals participating in the sector. And that can be shown very well with artisanal and small scale mining, because it's 100% Tanzanians taking place there. It is assumed that up to 15% of gold production, Tanzanian mining sector is pretty much a gold affairs. So 15% of gold production is done by ASM. In gemstone, most of it is done by artisanal and small scale miners. So they are big in that. And the sector significantly adds to the economy in that it employs up to 1 million miners. Some sources says the number could go to as high as 6 million. So it's significant subsector within the mining sector. And it's not then surprising that the government is taking ASM a little more serious than ever before. So what has happened due to changes in the law is that more small-scale miners have applied for primary mining licenses. Of late, the government has established trading centers. So right now, small-scale miners can go and sell their produce in formal areas rather than in black markets. The government, again, we'll talk about it later in collaboration with funders and stakeholders, has established centers of excellences and demonstrating centers, which basically trains artisanal and small-scale miners to do mining in a more modern way, in a more formal way, without necessarily destroying environment as they do before. One thing though persists is that the law still recognize small-scale miners, and it doesn't recognize artisanal miners. Unfortunately, in the 1 million number that I gave you, which could go to 6 million, the majority are artisanal miners. So when the law just recognizes a negligible percentage of this group, there is something wrong. And that's why issues like environmental and safety issues persist in this particular subsector. I was talking about ASM, but I want to show you that the two meet together. So most of the people talk about these two separately, but I want to suggest that the two actually move together. In most cases, ASM operates just next to LSM operations. So whatever you do to LSM necessarily affects ASM. And therefore we have to be very careful the way we deal with large-scale miners. We may indirectly be affecting artisanal and small-scale mining. And one very good example to show this is the multi-stakeholder partnership initiative that was supervised by the World Bank. But in there was Gator Gold Mine and the now defunct Acacia. They came together and put together this particular project, which amongst other things led into establishment of centers of excellence and demonstration centers that I've just told you before. So there is something that can be exploited by looking at LSM and ASM together rather than looking at them separately. Now, a few take homes. There are positive things. One, I should say that the government has been able to weather the storm that came with the Acacia issue. Some of us were wondering whether the mining sector would stand on its feet again because it was rough. but somehow the government negotiated itself out of it, and together with Barrick, they formed Twiga Mineral Corporation, and Barrick agreed to pay a settlement of $300 million as a settlement to pass Acacia disputes. So far, $200 million have been paid in the form of royalties and taxes by Twiga. Let's go back, Blandina, and of course, Barrick has been. It seems everything is fine because Barrick now has been given 10 new exploration licenses to operate in Tanzania, and it has committed to invest up to $80 million for exploration. Another very good take home is nickel. Just recently, actually it was in January, again a joint venture similar to Twiga Mineral Corporation was formed between UK-based Kabanga Nickel Limited and the government. The project that will be mining nickel and cobalt. Even more so, the Kabanga Nickel has committed itself to building smelter. Whether that will happen, we are waiting to see. But these are some of the positives. The revenues, by the way, since the amendments in the law in 2017, have gone up. You know, in 2017, revenues were in Tanzanian shillings 225 billions. By 2019-2020, the revenues had more than doubled. But there are also some take-homes that I call them pending challenges. The first one is what we are doing now, dialogue. I think, as we suggested as far back as in 2017 with my colleague Villinger, we need stakeholders to come and talk as regularly as possible. You know, I've told you an example where the government did an amendments in 2017, and by 2020 they had to amend the amendments so that you have an arbitration act to reverse what was done in 2017. Some of these things could be avoided if stakeholders would be brought together regularly to talk about issues and show the pros and cons of decisions within the sector. This is in the government part, but even for the investors part, right now, just yesterday, we heard of the news that the Indiana Resources, a mining company from Australia, is suing the government. I believe Indiana Resources could just sit down with the government and talk. Businesses are building mutual understanding and appreciation of what is their win-win situation. So I think this is a pending issue. We need more dialogue. The second issue is transparency. We have Tahiti, which doesn't very much give reports on time, so we don't know what is happening. It will be very nice for the government to be more transparent in terms of what is happening in the mining sector. I understand right now under the Ministry of Legal Affairs, there is a unit that has been recently formed called Natural Wealth and Resources Observatory Unit, which, amongst other things, compiles contracts and agreements across all the natural resources sectors in Tanzania. I hope when they do the compilation, there will be a bit transparent so that the rest of the public will know what is going on and what is happening at the time. Now, coordination issues are still a problem, especially to ASM. You go and talk to them, they say, you know what, we have got several governments here. NEMC will come talk about environment. OSHA will come the next day. Local government authorities will come. Mining Commission will come talk about the same thing. And they claim whenever these agencies come, they need money, and it becomes a bit of cumbersome. So I think issues of coordination are supposed to be taken care of. There are issues of environmental protection. There is environmental laws that are assigned to the mining sector. Unfortunately, there is no mention of climate change. I think, and I propose that we need to look at not just environmental protection in the sense that what these miners are polluting and we need to reclaim the lands and all that. We have to look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is climate change. This has to be there by law. I told you already that artisanal miners, who are the biggest players in the ASM subsector, are not recognized by law. If they are not recognized by law, how do you control their activities? How do you make sure that they graduate into small scale and become more formal? So I think something has to be done to ensure that something is happening in terms of accommodating artisanal players. The last thing that I think is a challenge is the way these players look at issues. I've told you, for instance, in ASM subsector, there are now centers of excellence, demonstration center. They are there to help these players grow and formalize. But then the way they are run is in such a way that ASM players feel that the government is trying to recognize where they are so that they can pay taxes. It's not about helping them, but it's about getting them registered so that they can pay tax. Now we need to be able to help them understand that it's not about taxes, but it's about safety, it's about environmental protection, it's about them growing. And unless we show them that, we can have all these centers and nobody will go and have services from there. And in the end, we may end up going back to where we were, where ASM was operating in black markets generally. Now, in conclusion, I wanted to just put few questions to the plenary, and I hope some of these questions will be discussed today. The first thing is, we know that there are production sharing agreements in the oil and gas sector. I was wondering, why isn't that happening in the mining sector? Is there a prospect for that to happen in the mining sector? The second thing that I thought we should have a look at is there a scope that we can integrate the mining sector to the rest of the economy? Right now, it's like an enclave within the economy. Can we integrate it to the rest of the economy? And what do we do to ensure that that happens? Another thing is, now that we have resource nationalistic policies and laws, do we see STAMICO playing a greater role? Right now, it doesn't. Right now, it's lagging behind. Can it, at some point, play a greater role in the sector? The fourth question that I want to put it out there is having to do with beneficiation. Even the law itself says, you know what, you cannot export raw materials. But do we have any plans to ensure that mineral beneficiation takes place in Tanzania? The law wants it to be so, but do we have a platform for that? And the last question that I want to ask is, can we start picking up winners? We have ASN, some of them are doing very well. The government has been time and again talking about the likes of the Maasai guy in northwestern Tanzania, forgotten his name, who for the past 1 or 2 years. Liza, yeah, Liza has been getting a lot of Tanzanite. Do we have plans to make sure that the likes of Liza's will graduate from being small scale to being medium scale to being large scale at the end of the day? Because if you are talking about local content policies, then we should have plans to do things of this nature. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That was all I wanted to talk about, and I'm looking forward to the discussions that follow.
Thank you so much, Abel, for that really, really great presentation. You've really highlighted the prospects that we have. You've taken us all the way back before independence and the changes that we've seen in the country. You've showed us that we've been moving more towards trying to be more inclusive. Now, Donald and Poja, and I'm seeing another question popping up. So I'm going to allow Donald to ask his question, though you sort of like bumped the question back to him. Donald, Karibu, with your question. Poja, please get ready. And then I think I will pick also Emmanuel.
Thank you, Blandina, and thank you so much, Abel, for kicking off this discussion. I just wanted to request you to reflect on the convergence or deviation between resource nationalism and the state sovereignty that we are seeing that is strongly emerging, not only probably in Tanzania, but across Africa, and what can we learn from the next, whether there's some convergence or deviation between the two, and what would be the implications that we are likely to see if we are to go in that direction. Thank you.
That's a really good question. Abel will also take a question from Poja. Poja, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Blandina. Thank you, Dr. Abel, for the wonderful presentation. So just as you have noted on the take home that my worry is also that, you know, how far are we thinking about the banning of the export banning of raw materials? Does that mean that we already have adequate capacity to do that? And if we do have the capacity, are our products or are our processed products going to be at par with other produced products in the international market? It would also be insightful to have any data on the implementation of this requirement so far. I have a follow-up question on the artisanal small-scale mining as well. It is somehow in my understanding that, as you mentioned, that, you know, more and more applications for primary scale miners have been coming in, but are these really the Tanzanian citizens, or, you know, they're still backed up, or, you know, it's just someone else in the background that is investing into them? Also, with the brokers and the middlemen coming in, how far are the ASMs benefiting from them, from this arrangement? And is it the small scale miners, or is it now this middleman? And if it is the middleman, how enough are they taxed, you know? And then you also mentioned about considering PSA and mining, but then I would also like to know what is the position of the mining development agreement at the moment, with the amendments and everything, and consider that with, you know, introducing PSA in the mining sector. And the last one being, what roles do the large-scale miners play in promoting and in progressing the small-scale miners that are around their sites? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pooja and Donald. The next question by Ronaldo and also Peter, they're all focusing on training, you know, appropriate training for ASM. Now, before I let Abel speak, I would like to let you know in our panel, so we do have a large-scale miner and we do also have an ASM. So I'm sure some of the questions will be responded to. Then Abel, over to you, and then I'll check again if there are more questions. Abel,
thank you, Blandina. Thank you, Blandina, Donald and Pooja. Donald, I want a little bit of clarity. Were you talking about convergence and deviation of laws?
Well, I think the conceptual way that the two dimensions are emerging, whether are they closely the same thing, or they have different implications in the sector? If we are talking about sovereignty, state sovereignty that we are seeing emerging not only in Tanzania but across the globe, and the nationalism, the resource nationalism. Just wanted to, are there overlaps, and what are the implications? Are there the same implications, or they are divergent?
I think the laws that we are seeing emerging right now across the developing world, to be specific, are very much resource nationalistic. And I have to be clear here. Resource nationalism has got nothing to do with nationalization. Resource nationalism is a very good idea, very good concept. That is saying that we own natural resources, then we deserve to get a little bit more. And I should say also that this came from the UN declaration way back in 1960s, that the UN declared that countries which have got natural resources should be given first priority in terms of benefiting from natural resources that are God-given to them. So that's very clear, and I have to reiterate that resource nationalism in itself is not a bad thing. And there's convergence in that, but the divergence comes into implementation now. You want resource nationalism, but how much ready are you to embrace it and make it implementable? That's where we are deviating. If I may jump and give an example outside the sector. Let's talk about oil and gas in Norway, for instance. Norwegian discovered oil and gas around 1940s, but they waited for another 30 years, up to 1970s, for actual production to start. What are they doing? They started building the capacities, they started training their people, so that by the time the actual production started, they had a base from which to make some of these resource nationalistic policies implementable. Now, when it comes to countries like Tanzania, we also have similar desires like the Norwegian had in 1940s and 70s. The only difference is we lack the requisite resources to carry them out. You know, our industrial base is is almost non-existent. So supplying goods and services, goods becomes a bit difficult. I think we really need to train our people, move away from university theoretical kind of training into more of hands-on polytechnic kind of training for us to have relevant skills to get in there. So if I may put it that way, that the resource nationalism has convergence in that what all the countries developed and developing want is to gain more, benefit more from their natural resources. But implementation becomes difficult because they have a different initial base to work on that, and that becomes quite a problem. Now, Pooja, a lot of questions. Some of them are
Abel, I will just ask you to answer in brief, and then you can throw it also to the members of the panel. They can react because they're going also to react to your presentation. So yes, please.
Thank you. That helps me a lot. Some of the questions that Pooja asked had to do with export ban, want beneficiation. These are the same thing that I was talking about in connection with Donald's question. You know, banning is a good idea because you want beneficiation to happen locally, but do you have capacity to ensure that that gap is closed locally, that's a different issue. So I think that's when we come back to the issues of dialogue. Do we want joint ventures? Do we want to talk to these people and commit them into training our people and make sure that in 5, 10, 20 years we have that requisite capacity? What is it that we need to do to ensure it's workable? The idea is brilliant, but it has to be implementable for it to really be effective. Otherwise, we'll have laws that are implementable, and then you have a lot of problems that are happening. Can I leave it there and allow my colleagues to talk a little bit later? Thank you.
That's fantastic, really, Abel. Thank you so much. I'm the only one who get to do the clapping, but really, it was a really insightful presentation, and I'm sure the members of the panel will pick up. I see the question on local content coming back up, and I'm going to ask Japhace, when you join the panel, to speak. So, ladies and gentlemen, after hearing from Abel, now we're going to hear from our 4 panelists. We have Lulu Olan'g, who is an economist and also a researcher. She has undertaken work when it comes to the extractives, so not just the mining sector, but also looking at the natural gas. We're really happy, Abel, in your presentation, you kept on referring to the large-scale miners. We're really happy we have Mr. Hilaire Diarra with us. And of course, lots of things that you were saying, he's there to confirm or, you know, improve or give a different perspective on what does it really mean to be a large-scale miner and how that they can better engage with others. And again, we have Japhace Poncian. He cares a lot about governance and also hinted a little bit on the local content bits. In as much as we want to see people are engaged, how are they really engaged in there? And then last but not least, as I said, we also have the workers, the real doers, the owners, and we are really happy we have Mama Shamsa Diwani with us, who will also share her views with us in reaction to your presentation. And I'm going to follow the order of how we've received, how you see the speakers on the screen. So very quickly, I am going to welcome Lulu to be the first presenter. Now, Lulu, just because of your age, I'm also going to ask you to touch a little bit on the youth, but then importantly, you know, a lot of things that Abel has said this morning is showing, in a way, the sector has been contributing to the economy. So how resilient has the sector really helped in Tanzania? And then the second question that I would like you to touch on, you know, how are we really adapting to the changes that we have? You've heard the challenge that Abel has just given us, that the things are changing super fast. Do you think we're really good and we're ready to change, or what can we do to change? He challenged us and he said there was nothing on climate change that we have covered. I think for your case, if you can touch on those 3 things, that will be fantastic. Lulu, the floor is yours. Karibu.
Thank you so much, Blandina. I hope everyone can hear me well.
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Great. So in case of internet connection, let me know. So quickly, with the few minutes that I have, I'll try to touch on the 3 areas that you've just highlighted. First of all, I'll start with the resilience of the economy based from the extractive industry. We have seen during the coronavirus, a lot of sectors have been affected hugely by the reduction of prices of goods and services, but we've also seen restrictions around different areas. We saw that there's restriction in transportation in different areas, which affected a lot of the economy. However, this has been a bit different, especially when it comes to gold. We've seen gold prices increase, and because of the increase in gold prices as well, the production of gold increased as well, which also helped most of the gold producers to sell a lot of gold. And you'd ask why gold would increase. So you see in times of certainty, people speculate a lot about what could be the consequences of this long-term, let's say, pandemic that we have, and we're not sure. So they run towards assets that appreciate in value and try to stock a lot more of that. And we see a lot of gold was in demand and the price increased during this time. And this increase in demand of gold and the price made it easy for gold producers like Tanzania, which produces a huge amount of gold, to sell a lot of its gold, especially when the restrictions were reduced at the time. And also, this can be also articulated also towards the move of the government to buy gold from small-scale producers through its institutions, Tamiko. I remember Dr. Abel mentioning the role of state-owned enterprises. So this could be one of the thing that actually contributed to the resilience of the economy, especially from the export of gold. So, however, at the same time, we see that even the report from BOT currently shows there's huge export that came from gold, which almost is 49% of non-export trades that came out of gold in exported outside. So I think this is one of the key things that produced the resilience for the economy. But also, you spoke about something towards the environment, and it's very true. I suppose there's been much dialogue about the environment, not just pollution that we have constantly over and over again heard about, the pollution from production of minerals, maybe from large-scale miners and polluting maybe rivers and control of this environment. But we have also not had discussion of the future in terms of in the environment, the greenhouse emissions. How are we positioned in the world? Like, how are we positioning ourselves with the minerals that we have? How are we positioning ourselves strategically to use the minerals that we have to actually make sure that we are not being left behind or our minerals are not in demand? Because, for example, you'll take coal production. Coal production hasn't been very much developed in Tanzania, and it is still in the risk of becoming a stranded asset. Why? Because the world is moving towards green technologies, moving towards renewable energy. The world is moving towards having non-fossil fuels, which are polluting the environment in general, and we are having a lot of heat in the world, and we are trying to reduce that overall. You see a lot of nations worldwide moving towards this area. And how is Tanzania positioning itself in that? For example, Dr. Abel mentioned that there is production of cobalt and nickel that is prospecting in the country. We think this is one of the good direction towards increasing export from the country from minerals that are more towards renewable energy and use of different materials. But also, I'll say something I'd mention is I think there's need to also have exploration for further minerals such as lithium. We know for those who, I'll say, and as I'm going towards the young generation, you know, like, for example, production of PlayStations has reduced in the country, I mean, in the world. For one, because there is a high demand for lithium towards production of explode the minerals that we have. If we have production of, let's say, lithium, to make sure we capture this market. So I think these are areas that we can also look at. Now, if I speak about the youth, is a bit I think one of the biggest challenge we have with the youth in mining and the contribution as a source of employment, I feel, and it's sad that I feel like the youth have been left behind, especially when it comes to mining activities. And not just being left behind in terms they're not participating. A lot of youth are participating in the mining sector. But for us to understand how the youth actually participate in the mining sector, we first have to understand the attitude, especially of the young miners when it comes to mining. So most of the young miners seek to go into mining because of one, I would say, the prospects of the quick pay, or not so much a quick pay, but the huge payment that can come out of mining. Most of them have the perspective probably they'll turn out to be the next Liza. And I could share this with the story of one of the gentlemen that I met, who had a lot of issues in the city because he had a lot of debts, and he thought that running to Mererani would be the best idea for him to raise money, a lot of money, to solve some of these cash issues. So you'd see that the youth that go towards mining is they're best looking towards elevating their own poverty. But you'll see that the young men and women working in the mining sector, especially, sorry, I think I got muted.
Yes, sorry, please go ahead.
Okay, so I was speaking about the young men and the women in the mining sector. So most of them, we refer to them, those who know them, as Wana Apollo, who actually do the work in the mining, the ones who go underground. Most of these, first of all, they don't really like to be referred as the youth, they just want to be referred as miners. And they have their own other challenges along the way. And we see that most of the young people who are in mining, especially the ones who are going down underground, are mostly men. But we see young ladies offering services as well around the mining sites, especially in these mining settlements. And there's also a challenge with, I think, a lot of young ladies working into value addition. So working into cutting and polishing. I think this is one of the areas that it can be a source of great employment for most young adults. So I think
that is really good. Yeah.
Yes, and I think most of the training is being offered around this polishing and acting and cutting for young men and women. And I know there are a few centers who do this, but they also have challenges of graduating after the training. What do they do with the education and the info they have done? Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, really, really, thank you so much, Lulu. You've really added more from what we heard from Abel. So it's like we've heard from a researcher, and now we also heard from a researcher. But I think now we should hear from the practical people themselves. And with this, please allow me to welcome Mr. Diarra. I'm sure you've heard a lot, but for me, I think one of the thing that I'm going to ask you to touch a little bit on, Hilaire, is when you're thinking about the sector, in most cases, we talk about how you engage with the community. So when you're making your presentation, I know you have a few slides to share, please go ahead. But then kindly tell us how you actually link up with the community. Yes, please. The floor is yours. You have about 7 minutes. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Blandina. Thanks for inviting me on this platform. I'm delighted to mediate here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. And I'm going to stop my video.
Okay. I have this couple of slides. I'll go very fast, noting that I've only 7 minutes. I'd like to point you to the cautionary statement. More can be found on our website. Dr. Abel, in his brilliant presentation, touched on the history of mining in Tanzania. But from our perspective, the code in 1997 was quite a modern one, and we could see that it led to the creation of large-scale mines like Lulu Olan'g, Olan'g, and Barrick, then the old Barrick. And now 33 years, you know, and it's important to note that Tanzania was leading Africa in 1997. It was the most modern mining code. And 33 years later, and as you can see with the joint venture between Barrick, the government and the people of Tanzania, it is again leading the field in delivering a modern approach to mining investment and sharing of the value, creating a true partnership. So we are very excited about the current law, the 16% free carrying interest and the 50-50 benefit sharing. It's actually leading the way again in Africa. In terms of exploration, as you all know, mining is a very consumptive industry. It keeps on mining itself away. So it's very important that as a large-scale mine, we keep on replacing those ore bodies we mine for our shareholders and stakeholders, or even discovering new ones. So Abel again mentioned that we've been given 10 PLs, and we are actively busy in trying to find new targets, and we are excited about the one we have already, and there is about more than 20 more PLs under application that we're working with the ministry to get the license for. This next slide will give the audience our performance in Tanzania based on the framework agreement. So in terms of mining, when we inherited Acacia, obviously the ore bodies or the mines were in really bad shape. So we had to do a lot of work. At the moment, we have improved our understanding of the ore bodies, and also we've reviewed the mining method and also the life of mines plans, which we are on the way to submit to the Mining Commission. North Mara has successfully transitioned to owner mining underground. So as you know, it was burn cut, a contract mining that was busy at North Mara, but now it's being done fully by the mine itself. Bulyanhulu commenced processing ore in Q4, the last quarter of last year, and it's expected to be in full production by the end of this semester. As you know, there are massive technological development in the world of mining across the globe today, and to remain competitive, we are investing in quite some advanced technology. And we believe this is a huge opportunity for the workforce in Tanzania as we look to young, talented, and passionate workers to join us in this mission. Gold production was 462,000 ounces for 2020. That was well within the guidance. And also as you can see, the ramping up of the production with Buzwagi remaining a bit constant because we are on the way to close Buzwagi this year. But North Mara and Buli, we want to combine them to make a tier 1 asset. And as you know, tier 1 assets, there is only 13 in the world, and we have 6. And when we combine Bulyanhulu and North Mara, it should make our 7th one globally. Water management was a key challenge when we came in September 2019, but so far we have done quite some massive improvement, as you can see from the picture. 2019, the tailings dam was quite full of water, and in in 2020, you could see the difference that we have. And this happened by really having a lot of improving the water balance and rearranging the pumping system, and also putting in a new water treatment plant. To date, we are quite confident that we would meet our commitment to have the brine treatment plant in place by May this year. And it's just 2 months ago, but we're still optimistic. Dr. Abel did mention a couple of challenges that I share with him. Is the coordination among agencies. At the moment, we have separate views, and when you agree with one agency on something today, doesn't necessarily guarantee other agencies to follow suit, and that's causing a lot of problems. And also the perceptions around the communities also that we currently dealing with. It's a major challenge in terms of North Mara, where it's coming from, all the allegations and also the wrongdoing of the previous operators. So we have quite a lot of work to do, but we're quite advanced. I'll touch on that as Blandina mentioned. In terms of national workforce, for some reason, there is a general perception that we have on the expatriate or more expatriate working on our operations, but that's not the case. Today in our operations, we employ about 3,500 people, and 96% of that are all country nationals. And we are really working hard to having country national managing our assets, because that's what we believe in. We've done it in other countries, and that's what we will do also in Tanzania. In terms of the revenues and the benefits of this mining code, Dr. Abel touched on a few points. But if money alone was the indicator of success, we've invested in total in 2020, since we've arrived in Tanzania, 800 million USD in the country in the forms of taxes, dividends, permits, infrastructure, salary, and payment to local suppliers. And so based on that, I would say mining is quite a very big economic engine. And I believe in Tanzania, it's quite integrated compared to some of the geographic locations we know. We've also paid an interim dividend of 250 million, and also paid 100 million as down payment to the 300 million commitment. We've spent more than 180 million on capital expenditure and also on exploration in 2020. So we have quite a lot to do in 2021, and the budget is as much as what we did in 2020. In terms of CSR, I think there is no avoiding of this. As you will see in the world, there is a big drive in terms of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. If you look at the history of the mining industry has done well in terms of the E. Now I'm not talking about Acacia, because we all know what Acacia did, but the mining industry has been doing very well globally in the E, but the S and the G has been lagging behind. And that's also a major problem, because if the S is quite such a powerful component that it cannot be ignored. And we know that. That's why we placed quite a focus on stakeholder engagement around North Mara, because as I've said, there is a lot of trust issues at the moment in the community. We've improved the situation because we've opened dialogue. Now we can talk to everyone. People can go into the community, be talking. But there has been a lot of practice in the past that we are trying to root out, and that's speculations and people not being honest, economic crimes. So we're trying to really work with the community, and also making sure that the investment get to the Mwananchis, to the real communities. It was a practice around North Mara for a few people getting all the benefits, and the real community don't get to the bottom. Obviously, when we come in and we try to go and engage with, you know, the old mama in his house that nobody visited, or the vulnerable people, there is a lot of resistance at the moment. And we even have calls from MPs and councillors trying to stop us from doing that. But that's what we believe in, and that's what we will do. At the moment, we're engaging a lot with the government to get that resolved. We've implemented what we call the CDC, Community Development Committee. Exactly, that's where we want every groups in the community to have a voice in that committee, and not just the political establishment in the area. So it's work in progress. It's a lot of discussion, a lot of challenge, and we have to be ahead of information because there is a lot of propaganda also involved. But we are confident we're making progress there. And to finish off, I would like to stress that successful partnership in host countries are key to finding, developing, and running world-class mines. And our journey in Tanzania has just begun. Thank you for your attention.
Many thanks, Hilaire, for really covering what Twiga has been doing. And it's nice to see really the prospects of what is there later on. But importantly, I think I like, and I repeatedly, whenever you make a presentation, you keep reminding us the type of investment we need. Before I opened up the panel, I say a lot of times when we think about the mining sector, we think of two things. We think of revenue and employment. But then I like the twist that you bring in. You're like, haha, it's not just that, the investment that is needed for you to keep up with all the technology that is out there. I think it's really important, and really thank you for sharing with us. And I'm sure people are asking in the chat room, all my presenters, people want your notes, people want your presentation. I think when we record, when we share the recording, we will also share the presentations that we heard. So next up, Japhace, you're up next. You've done amazing work. So we've heard from a researcher, from a practitioner. Now we go back again to another researcher. And I think, Japhace, it will be really good to hear from you, you know, what you've heard so far. And I think with your work in particular, you look into relationships as to how all these different actors do interact and they work together. And I will give you the floor now to share with us your views and what you think is very important that you got from Abel's presentation. You also have 7 minutes, and then we will finish with Mama Diwani. Yes, Japhace, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Blandina. Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful dialogue and for the very informative presentation by Dr. Abel and my co-panelists. I'm going to talk about participatory extractive resource governance, and we have heard quite a bit from Dr. Abel on local content and the importance of dialogue in the extractive sector. What I would like to start with is that Tanzania has, for quite some time, there has been some improvements in terms of how the extractive sector has been governed, in terms of how stakeholders relate to each other and how they converge with each other. If we look back into the President Kikwete's regime, we see quite a lot that happened back then in terms of putting up institutions that can push participatory resource governance, that can put participatory resource governance mechanisms in place. So quite a number of laws and policies were put in place, and Dr. Abel talked about them. beginning with the mining policy in 2009, that was followed by a mining act in 2010, which I think for the first time since 1998, brought in the idea of local content, even though implementation continued to be a key challenge, and brought on the idea of beneficiation in the country and the idea of resource-based industrialization. So there was much talk about resource-based industrialization during the period from 2010 to 2015. And we still see the same emphasis carried along when President Magufuli came in, and the 3 pieces of legislation that Dr. Abel talked about, which came in 2017, and the regulations, the local content regulations, which were brought in 2017 and 2018, both for the mining sector and for the oil and gas sector. So in the end, we have quite a comprehensive local content regulations, comprehensive and strict in the sense that it's not only about employment, it's not only about employment and procurement of goods and services, but it covers quite a bit. It talks also about research and development, and it talks about quite a number of other service sectors, including the legal services, the financial services, and so forth. So looked at it from the perspective of what the papers say, of what the laws say, one might say that, and in answering one of the questions that was posed by Abel towards the end of his presentation, one would say that Tanzania is moving towards making the mining sector or the extractive sector linked with the rest of the economy, at least looking at it from the perspective of what the laws and the regulations say. But the key issue, the key issue that remains is how do we translate what we have in laws and regulations into what we intend to achieve? So the practical part of that remains the key challenge. But also, again, we have been having quite a number of developments in terms of how the government has sought to engage with different stakeholders. We have had several meetings between the state and at Sun and small scale miners, for example. We have one every year around January and February, organized by the Ministry of Minerals, which brings together stakeholders from the ASIM sectors, sometimes quite contradictory, with majority of participants from the ASIM sector, and also from the large scale, quite a small number of others from the large scale mining sector. But these meetings are bringing the government closer to the mining stakeholders, and key issues are being discussed and ironed out. We had a very good example, I think, from the 2019 meeting between the president, the State House, and the business community, where the small scale miners gave out, identified some of the challenges they are facing. And one of them was the tax issues, the fiscal taxation issues. And the president promised to address it, and it was addressed. So giving us hope that these meetings can indeed take the sector forward and can create a platform for harmonious relations between the government and the miners. And also there has been, Dr. Abel talked about the 3 legislations which came in 2017, and the parliamentary oversight, which was emphasized in these pieces of legislation. The parliament empowered now to discuss, to debate about the contracts and advise the government accordingly on necessary changes of unconscionable terms. So on the other hand, we might say from a representative perspective, then we might say this, the sector, and from what the laws say, we might say the sector is being opened up for dialogue and for participation. And also we have local content requirements. If you look at the local content regulations in the mining sector and in the oil and gas sector, there is a requirement for mining companies to work closely with local government authorities in determining which projects to fund in the company's corporate social responsibility projects. So working alongside local government authorities ensures that at least the project, the CSR projects will not be conceived by the mining companies, but they will come from the communities themselves. Probably the challenge would be, how do we make sure that the local government authorities work closely with the communities again to determine which projects to fund, so that as the local government authorities meet with extractive companies, they will present something that comes from the communities. And also, so if you look at these positives, one might say that there is some positive prospect in terms of how the mining sector and the oil and gas sector is open to dialogue and can be participatory. But then there are quite some of the issues which yes,
I'm saying we're losing you, so I'm going to stop your video, but continue speaking. It's fine. You can use your mic. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So apart from these positives, the positive developments which we might see in the laws and on the practice in the meetings organized by the state, a key challenge that remains is how we view extractives as a nation. There has been quite a lot of securitization around the mining sector, and we tend to look at these resources as highly sensitive resources, and we talk about them as in a framework of what we now call economic war. And by referring them to an economic war, by referring to everything that is being done, every measure that is being taken by the government to improve the sector as an aspect of economic war, we make it difficult for meaningful dialogue to evolve. And by securitizing these resources, we make it quite a bit harder for stakeholders to be free to talk about them, let alone hold a meaningful dialogue with the government. And then we have issues of the national versus the local. In the local content, the local content is framed in the ways that it is more of a national content than it is of local content. And the political economy aspect of Tanzania, or the Tanzania's extractives, is so much constraining. The extractive resources are looked at as national resources, and the understanding is that they can only be exploited for the benefit of the entire citizenry of Tanzania. And that presents challenges when local communities have an agenda to push through in terms of how they want to be engaged in the extractives and how they would want to benefit from the extractives. We have had cases, and Abel mentioned some of them from the late 1990s in Bulyanhulu and so forth, and recently in Mtwara. Whenever such communities come up and they have probably legitimate issues that they would want the government to address, it is normally, these issues are normally branded as selfish and anti-national development. And this does not help if we are talking of a meaningful dialogue, extractives have to benefit the local before they can benefit the national. If we want this to be an important aspect, but also how do we define participation? Much of the talk on participation is on local content. Yes, it's important. Everyone wants to gain economic advantages, economic benefits from extractive resources. Yes, we want employment. Yes, we want beneficiation. Yes, we want more revenues. But at what we talk about for example, citizen and community
Japhace, looks like we're losing you again. I'm saying it looks like we're losing you again. So I didn't hear your last point before that.
Sorry?
I'm saying we lost you towards the end. I did not hear the last point that you raised.
Okay, I was saying about how we define, as a nation, how we define participation and what we look at. So the tendency has been around a focus on the economy. Much talk on employment, much talk on local firms' participation, much talk on procurement of goods and services, and so forth. And in a way, we get lost in a sense that we forget about what makes the economy thrive. We still need economic benefits, but these need to be moderated by a more robust participation of citizens, of communities, and of the businesses in determining the agenda for the extractives sector.
So, thank you, really.
So I thought I say these brief issues for now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Those were really, really, really helpful, and we really thank you for that, Asante Sana. So we've heard issues on participation, we've heard issues on investment, and Lulu raised issues around, even when you're thinking about getting all these resources, issues on climate, issues on engagement of youth and the women. That was really good. So now let's go again to another practical speaker. We're really happy to have Mama Diwani with us, and she will also have 7 minutes to share with us how does she really relate to what Abel has shared with us. Mama Shamsa Diwani, karibu sana. The floor is yours.
Asante sana. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be part of this dialogue today. As Blandina said, my name is Shamsa Diwani. I'm the chairperson of Tanzania Mineral Value Addition Tanzania. And also I'm part of TAWOMA because we work together. TAWOMA is Tanzania Women Miners Association. I was a Secretary General with TAWOMA for about 10 years ago. But now I'm just in the committee of advisory and ethics in TAWOMA.
Mama Shamsa, can I ask you to tilt your computer just a little bit? We cannot see your face. Can you tilt whether your computer or your phone, just a bit? But it's okay, you can continue, it's fine also. If we see you okay, if we don't, it's also okay. Sasa.
Okay, do you see me now? Do you see me now?
A little bit, but
okay.
That's better, a bit better, but it's okay. Yes, please continue.
Okay. What I can say, how did I come to mining sector? I was working with Air Tanzania before, long time ago, about 20 years ago. Had an opportunity of traveling different countries. It's where I built my passion for gemstones. When I was there, just I felt that maybe after getting my early retirement with Air Tanzania, I should go to mining sector. But by that time, without knowledge of mining, it was not easy. I just went in this sector, and then I found it was very difficult because you have to have a knowledge of mining, you have to have a good capital. Then I worked with an association because it's a part of my hobby to help other women to work together with other women. So I joined with association. And then I found that mining for me is hard. I can't do it. Then I went to mineral value addition. Slowly, I started to buy from small-scale miners, gemstones, and make jewelry, cut and polish, things like that. And I felt it's a bit better because you lose everything. Because in mining, for 6 years, I was not getting anything. I couldn't even start mining. So after 2015, I decided to go to mineral value addition fully. And we registered this MIVA, mineral value addition, with a small, it was a small group with women. Then really it was good because in mining, in mineral value addition, you can use any type of gemstones, even those which are not in good quality, so that you can help other women in the mining area to buy those gemstones which are not in very good quality, and you can do something and you get money. And also you can support other small-scale miners. For those who have good quality, but it's not easy to sell stones. It's not like gold. Gold you can sell anywhere, anytime. But gemstones is not easy. It's hard to get, unless you have a very good stone, gem quality, then you can sell if you know the customers. Then I just decided to convince other ladies, and now we have joined with Tawoma fully and opened a shop, Tawoma shop. We have Tawoma shop, which we do mineral value addition and then sell our products. We have started. I think we are the first group to get this small lapidary license. We thank our government. They favored us to give this small lapidary license. Then we have just started to sell products in our shop. We do cut and polish gemstones, tumbling stones, designing jewelries, and designing handicraft like wall clock and other decors in the house, beading. But we lack of really knowledge of designing, just trying ourselves without any, maybe through Pinterest and things like that. So we do it. But I think we need to get expertise in doing this, those items of mineral value addition. We need to get the knowledge and skills, and also to have a sustainable market for our products. Also, we need to get modern equipment, machineries and tools, and also finance for working capital. Expertise and designers will help us to get the good quality product, and so we can produce in good quantity and good quality and sustainable. And then we are thinking of what we can we can ask for support from stakeholders to establish a program to empower women and youth in mining communities, to get awareness for the business and the entrepreneurial skills. Because from the mining areas, you find women are suffering even to get the porridge for their children. But they have plenty of gemstones, although they are not good quality, but still you can do something and get money. But they don't know about it. Also want to sensitize women, revision of policies and laws and Mining Act, and create awareness for personal growth so they can stand up and defend their rights. Because women, most of the women, they don't know their rights in mining sector. I think they don't have hobby to read, to know. That is a problem. So we have to sensitize them. And also if we can be offered maybe soft loans or grant for modern machinery and tools, we thank our government. They had helped us a lot, and also they are still helping us, because even the office we are using, we've been offered by Stamico. So that is a great support to us. And also, I think if we can be engaged with the expertise for our program so that we can produce good quality, quantity, and sustainable products for local market and also for international market. That will also help us to expand our business, and we want to expand all over Tanzania. Everywhere there are mining areas, so women and youth, they need to have these programs of mineral value addition, because you can think about Hong Kong, how they are making their sales in beads. We have every type of gemstones. We are blessed with gemstones in Tanzania and Africa. So we have a great chance to do this market ourselves here, just to get the technology, to get the equipment, machineries. We have this institute, our institute in Arusha, have these programs, but they are not yet at that extent, because up to now, we expect to buy all our products here in Tanzania and to get all the machineries which can produce it well. Even ourselves, we women, we can do it if we get the expertise in doing so. And why people goes to Hong Kong? They come to Africa, they can come to Tanzania, even Malawi, Zambia, Kenya, they can bring their stones here and we do ourselves here. That could be better for us, for the government, for our government, and also for everyone. And also we are dreaming to have women in jewelries to do. We have few women who are trying to make jewelry, but we want women, because this is a simple job. Women can do it easily, just to get the training, to get the knowledge of doing jewelries. They can do it and accurately, then we can sell them international and local. That could help most of the people. If you help women, you help everybody in the family. I think that is all I can say about mineral value addition.
That
Maybe
is
if
really,
you have
really,
something I can.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And we really thank you for sharing firsthand experience as to how you really work. Because one point that came out very clearly from Abel It's the size of the smaller groups that we have, and how kind of like difficult it is with coordination. So from what I'm hearing from you, so the coordination bits that we've heard from both Abel and also I think Diarra spoke about, it's not just for the big guys in the government, but also it's important with the small scale miners, and in particular when you're talking about adding value. I also liked a lot your point on, you kept on insisting, important to have expertise. And I think comment in the chat room is showing that when you're speaking about expertise, it's not just when it comes to just getting the minerals, but also when you're processing them. And in particular, the more you go up in the value chain, you would need more of that. I'm looking at the chat room for a question. Abel Mtweve, your question actually, you're asking for materials. And with that, I think we can offer you more materials that are available, in particular looking on issues around local content and how the community are interlinked. I think Diarra touched on it, and there is a lot of work that is showing how the communities are being engaged or not. But then again, in the chat room, I'm going there just to check the question. I think the other issue that has come up, and that this is Pooja, she would have loved to hear a little bit from you, Mama Diwani, how you're empowering women. And actually in your presentation, you kept on saying you work in a group and you pick different women from all over Tanzania. I thought that one was really good. She asked it before you had spoken about it. The other questions that I'm seeing here, regards to the coal industry, this one goes to Lulu, and some support there. And the person is Kabula. Kabula is saying it will be very important actually, if we want to win anything through the coal industry, we have to do it fast. We have to do it now, because we are all moving towards cleaner energy. Additional questions that we have. This one, Abel, as I said, Abel Mtweve, I think you're asking for more materials. We will give contacts of Abel Kinyondo, and I'm sure he can guide you better. The next question, Gerald, I think this question, when you asked it, it was just when Japhace was speaking. But then I think you raise a really good point that there are opportunities out there, in particularly, unfortunately, what we have now, it's not very clearly showcasing what some other services that we can get when we're talking about local content, issues around insurance services and financial services. And yes, I'm going to commit to this. We are going to share all the presentations that we received today. Still, I'm going to pick, there is not a question. I can tell the forum is really informed. I mean, the people who are in the forum today are so informed about the sector. So a lot of the issues that are raised in the chat room, we are going to compile, and you're all going to see them. And I hope you check them out. There is an issue around technology transfer that has been raised here, and we think it's very important that when we are thinking about actually undertaking any investment, and in particular in this complex mining sector, it is important to really think importantly what kind of technologies you're going to admit. You saw the big numbers that Diarra shared with us, and I think it's very important to keep that in the mind. I'm seeing 3 hands. I would have loved to see your question, then I call you, then calling you, and then I'm not sure what you're going to ask. But then I'm going to start with you, Diana. You're welcome. You can ask your question. Diana? I'm asking you to unmute yourself. Go ahead. Okay. Humphrey Simba? Okay, Diana, you are speaking now. Please go ahead. Diana once more, and then I move to the next person. Diana? Okay, I think I'm gonna move to Humphrey then. Humphrey.
Can I go now?
Yes, you go ahead.
Good morning, Dr. Blandina. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Humphrey.
Just wanted to make my contribution. Local content have been very, very common now in the past 5 years, but it has been there. I was reading the economic, the 5 years plan of 1969 to 1974. They were speaking of local content, but not directly of local content, mentioning the in-country value addition. The Mchuchuma Liganga project was mentioned. And then 1977, local content was again on the table. But recently, it has been a thing in the mining sector. One of the questions that I always ask people in the mining and the government is, how are we integrating local content issues in the mining to the general economy? Because the contribution of mining to the economy is only 4 to 6%, where we are aiming to 10%. And still the emphasis on local content is very huge. So how are we integrating to the 90% of the economy so that the nationals, the Tanzanians can widely benefit? Mining activities, they do not, they're not, they come to an end. So after the closure, after the life of a mine, what are these companies that are established now going to do? That's one. The other thing with reference to the regulations, to the laws, we have many services that have been identified to the nationals. One of the services that is doing very well is catering. That is one that's going to Tanzanians, and there have been processes or there have been steps to why now catering is being done by Tanzanian companies, the likes of AKO and others. But the other services like financial services, the banking sectors, how are they involved into the local content? This is now what I commented earlier. More engagement with the stakeholders is required so that they can understand what is in. The regulation 34 clearly states that for a mining company to acquire financial services, the consideration should be first to the Tanzanian financial service providers. But are the Tanzanian financial service providers going into understanding their role into mining? And again, I was in the mining exhibition last few weeks. It was said there that, I can agree. Yes.
Humphrey, I'm gonna ask you to put a very short, the last one, that should be your last intervention. Please have it really short. We have 4 hands.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Doctor. I want to comment the mining procurement takes about 4.4 trillion T shillings. Now, how are the financial sectors going into those 4.4 trillion shillings annually? That's it for now. It's a wider discussion. Thank you, Dr. Blandina.
All right, thank you so much, Humphrey, for those great insights. I'm sure when we give the last words to all our panelists, including our keynote speaker, they would react to that one. Diana, I think your mic is open now. You can go ahead and ask your question or your comment. Diana Makule. Okay, we cannot hear you, so I'm gonna ask Peter then to speak. Yes, Peter.
Hello.
Can you
Hello.
guys hear him? I can't hear you, Peter.
Hello.
Now I'm hearing Dr. Peter Kafum. I was
Yes.
calling, I think Peter got the call.
Yeah,
Your mic is open.
Yeah, I'm struggling with my computer here. I can't launch my video, and I wanted to comment at the beginning when Dr. Kilyondo was presenting, because I'm
okay, sure, go ahead. We can hear you now, so proceed.
But without the video.
Yeah, it's fine. I can allow your video now. Now you can try it.
Yeah, it's not I think my
it's fine. You can speak. We can hear you.
I wanted to say that when Dr. Kilyondo was speaking, he spoke very nicely about the history of our evolution of our mining industry. But the one problem which arises, because I came into mining act in the mining industry in 2005, and I was given the work to make sure that we review the Mining Act of 1998. And the problem was that the 1998 Mining Act was so investor friendly, and there was a lot of perception, a lot of complaint from the people. So it was very difficult. And then Kilyondo just said very well. At that time, we introduced all the social nationalistic issues, so the problem is that when we speak of mining, we only speak of the precious metals and the stones. We forget about the industrial-based minerals, which are the real danger of the industry. Iron ore, for example, minerals like graphite, coal, and others. So in that way, these two minerals, precious minerals and gemstones, are really not very they cannot significantly change the economy of a nation. The second point that which Kilyondo made also, that we need people and the government to participate, and this was put in the Mining Act of 2010, and also the participation of small-scale miners. And the last point I want to put here is that, because I don't have time, is that when Kilyondo said that the ASM are not in the Mining Act, in the law, is not really okay, because the Mining Act of 2010 talked about the small-scale miners in terms of setting areas for them, in terms of giving them special licenses called PMLs, primary mining licenses. And they put also a special way that the government would help them in making environmental impact assessments. So there are special effects to them so that they can do it without any hindrance. They're not like the large-scale miners. Maybe I end up there. Thank you very much.
Really, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kafum. And we managed to see you actually at the end. So, yes, Abel, yes, you're going to react. You're going to react. You're going to react in a few seconds. So I'm seeing a lot of hands, but then sorry, our session is about to end. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start with Mama Diwani, and then I'm going to ask Japhace, and then Diarra, and then also Lulu to say something before I come to you, Abel, and then what you will be the last person to speak. So Mama Diwani, your last thought. Karibu. Mama Diwani? Okay, so Japhace, if you're there.
Yes, I'm there. I'm here.
Okay. Karim.
Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for the comments. quite lively and informative comments. One thing I want to end with is that we have very prescriptive local content requirements, laws and regulations, and that it's quite very easy to prescribe what to do, what the industry, what the mining industry, what the oil and gas industry should do to promote local content. The key question to ask ourselves is, what are we doing as a nation, as a government, as stakeholders? What are we doing to enable the industry deliver what it has to deliver? That's what I put up to everyone to ponder about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Diarra, your final words, please. Karibu. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine. I'm just excited, Dr. Blandina, for being part of this forum, and the level of knowledge is just phenomenal. And as Barrick in the country, we are always open to people that would like to know more about our business and also to contribute to making the mining industry better in the country. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Hilaire. And then I start with Lulu.
Hi, thank you so much for the rest of the panelists, as well as the contributions from everyone from the chat. I have been following, quite interesting, and I would say I quite agree with some of the participants raising issues around coal and its development at the moment, and I think it's something that can further be discussed in further dialogue. But again, very importantly, to know how we strategically position ourselves with developing the critical minerals, such as the ones that I mentioned for green gas emission, but the youth as well, very important to bring them into the discussion, to have them know how they can be best positioned, the policies that can actually impact their participation, and also capital being provided for them, as well as opportunities for training to participate better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lulu. Abel, over to you. You heard people spoke a lot of things. Really, thank you for that fascinating keynote. Abel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Blandina. I wanted to first clarify one thing. It's a common misunderstanding that people confuse small-scale miners and small-scale mining and artisanal miners. The law in Tanzania recognizes small-scale mining. That should be very clear. Small-scale mining. But the same law only recognizes small-scale miner, and they get the title by getting primary mining licenses. Let me put it in a different way. We have got small-scale miners. Let me not put any difference between artisanal and small-scale miners for understanding. So we have small-scale miners. For them to qualify as small-scale miners officially by law, they need to require PML. Now, if a small-scale miner does not have PML, that miner is called artisanal miner. I don't know whether I'm clarifying this. So you need by law to have PML to be recognized as small-scale miner. But if you are doing small-scale mining activities and you don't have PML, you are artisanal miner. I thought I should make this one very, very clear. So you need primary mining license for the law to recognize you as a small-scale miner. But if you are doing small scale mining activities and you don't have PML, then you are just artisanal miners. And majority of these people in ASM, they don't have PML. As a result, they are called artisanal miners. So I think I should put that one very clearly. One thing that I wanted to say and concluding with is that we need dialogue. We may have all the laws, we may have all the regulations, we may have all the policies, but if we don't talk to each other, if we don't explain our grievances to each other, we'll never move anywhere. The government is right on certain things, miners are right in certain things. You need to come together so that you can have that midpoint where you can sit and say, okay, I'll compromise in these areas, you will compromise on those areas, let's move together. If we don't do that, arbitration cases will never finish, disputes will keep on piling, and that's not what you want. Thank you, Blandina.
Thank you so much for that great response from our panelists and also from our keynote speaker. Please allow me then to welcome Dr. Olan'g for a wrap-up. It was really great engagement. It was a really great session. I thank you all for participating. Dr. Olan'g, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Blandina, and congratulations for excellent moderation of the session. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Olan'g from Institute of Management and Entrepreneurship Development. IMED is part of the partners, the 4 partners who are actually involved in this project, who were introduced this morning. So together with Pilot for Development and Tampere Peace Center and COWI. And my role is just to say a few words. First, to thank all of you for joining the consultations. I think it has been a very exciting and rich exchange. And I'm sure we all agree that this kind of dialogue is very valuable, and it will help us a lot in moving in the right direction to benefit from mining resources, but also other resources in the country. Special thanks to the moderator, but my colleagues from the partner institutions, but most of all from the panelists led by Dr. Kinyondo, and Dr. Poncian, and the colleagues from Barrick and Shamsa, Lulu. By the way, Lulu is Swahili word for precious. So we have actually somebody who is called one of the subjects of the consultations. Dr. Kafumo also, one of the people who have been at a very high level in this sector. And I think I cannot summarize everything that has been said. As I said, it has been very, very rich and insightful. I personally have learned a lot. But the main message that is coming out is that resource nationalism is actually not bad. It's a good thing. But for us to benefit from it, we need to be more strategic, and we need to engage in dialogue in order to exchange ideas and then to learn from each other in order to be able to develop more workable models and approaches for benefiting from the mining sector, which the country is blessed with a lot of this. So it is through dialogue that we will learn, that we will also address the issues that we need to address to benefit from mining, including capacity building, which has been mentioned many times in different aspects of the capacities, but also beneficiation, to also improve the regulatory framework to be more predictable, to be more practical, and to be able to attract investors while at the same time enabling us to reach our national goals. So it's also through dialogue that we'll be able to improve coordination and to be able to monitor what is happening, to be able to target the right audiences. Somebody mentioned that we might be talking of small scale miners, but it might not be Tanzanian who are investing in that space. I think some of the messages has been, let's go beyond the precious metals. We have a lot of opportunities in the mining sector beyond the precious metals. The precious metals are very important, and it has been presented that they'll help us in terms of diversifying the economy and increasing our resilience. We saw a very good example during these COVID times. And we also have some positive developments, especially the increase in revenue and the companies that are already working with the government to comply largely to the existing regulations, including now we have Trigger and the Barrick and the government, and Nickel's investment and so forth. So it appears the percentage, if Dr. Kinyondo is talking of number of companies that are compliant, it might be 2 rather than 1. So probably it might go to 2%. So I think some very important message around the youth participation in this space. And we know we have a huge challenge of youth unemployment. So this is an area that requires a lot of dialogue, a lot of thinking, a lot of strategizing to be able to see how can our youth take advantage of the opportunities in the mining more so that they get gainful employment. And also, how do we support more artisanal small-scale mining to graduate to higher levels? That also goes with how do we attract other investors, even local investors, to invest in different levels in the mining sector. I think one of the other key messages has been we have to think of ways to deepen the integration of mining to the economy so that it doesn't remain as an enclave. We got a positive message that Tanzania is ahead in this area, but I think a lot more can be done. So the aim is not to say everything that has been said. I think a lot of useful information, insights, experience have been shared, and I see there is a lot of value in this conference, and I would urge the participants to continue participating in the forthcoming consultations, as already mentioned by Blandina. So Blandina, thank you very much, and thank you very much everybody for coming and for your participation. Asanteni sana.
All right, thank you so much, Donati, for those great wrap-up words. And yes, we will have more dialogue, as I said, on the 15th. We'll have one on Sustainable Development Goals, and then on the 31st, we'll have one on the youth. So I'm excited about that. Again, I thank you all for attending, and also I thank the team that has been on the background preparing all this. Adija, Kumimedia, Derek, we thank you so much. Elise, Olomi, of course, yourself, Hans, Bram, all you guys have been fantastic. We thank you so much. And I'm looking forward, I think, to next dialogue. And yes, we will read all your comments and we will try to improve. If you have personal comments on how we improve, you can also write in the chat box. I think maybe we'll wait for 2 or 3 minutes so that we close the recording then. But really, thank you so much for joining us today and looking forward to better discussions. Thank you, everyone, and cheers.